We have a number of things planned to celebrate the stadium's history. A big part of the celebration will be our Camp Randall 100. We had an esteemed panel of Badger historians select the 100. I had a chance to see the list and had some input. Some are familiar names and some that will make people think. But that's the fun part. Many of the names obviously have strong ties to Badger football. With that in mind, it's very fitting that our first honoree is a true Wisconsin legend. He grew up in the city, was a Hall of Fame player. He gave me the opportunity to be the head coach here in 1990. It's only proper that we honor the first Camp Randall 100 nominee and name Pat Richter as the #1 honoree. Don't drop it. I would have passed it to you. This is overinflated, I'll tell you that.
Pat, if you'd like to make some opening comments.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Barry, and I'm honored to be one of the 100. Obviously, coming from Madison, it's a great honor, and I've been around Camp Randall for a long time. And as I was starting to think about this, as we were selecting some of the people, it got to be a scary thought. And I said, well, now with Tom Butler gone and Jim Mott gone, and some of that institutional memory, I started looking in the mirror and said, you're getting to be the oldest guy around now. So, but it is a really honor, and it was a lot of fun. It had made you think a little bit. Reach back for some people in the distant past, and it was just a great experience. And so we look forward to the whole 100 days. And again, I'm honored to be the first one named. Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, Pat. Before we open it up for questions, I wanted to also point out that in addition to the Camp Randall 100, there are two other elements of our 100 years of Camp Randall Stadium celebration that we are introducing today. The first is camprandall100.com, which is a website dedicated to the celebration of 100 years of Camp Randall Stadium. The dedicated site was launched today and will be the home of the year-long celebration, including exclusive stories and videos with some of the most famous names in Camp Randall Stadium history. The site also includes a complete timeline of the history of the stadium, historic photos, videos, and fan-submitted memories. Each day leading up to the September 1st season opener, a new member of the Camp Randall 100 will be revealed. The other thing I'd like to mention, as you can see on either side of me, are replicas of our 7 unique ticket designs for our 7 home games this season. Each one of the designs is based off a historical game program cover. Where it was possible, those designs were pulled from past games with the current season's opponents. With that, I'll open it up for questions for either Coach Alvarez or Pat or myself. Todd.
Pat, you had a hand in selecting this list. What was the most difficult part about that for you to narrow it to 100 or to figure out which, who belongs, who maybe is on the edge of it? What were the difficulties for you there?
I think first off, I think when Brian, we first started talking about it, was all the people that had been there, and you say, okay, are we going to put in Heisman Trophy winners, or are we going to put in coaches, like Schembeckler, et cetera, all those kinds of people. And once I think Brian got his hands around it, he realized that it was about probably a couple hundred that could have been that. And so we kind of narrowed it down, I think, to more Wisconsin-type people, and then going back 100, you eliminated, Pat O'Days and things like this. But there were some that people just weren't aware of, and Eddie Withers, for example, or someone like that needed to be considered. And so it was, I think that's my perspective, perhaps, in being around a long time, brought up some names that we had to kind of ruminate through. And, of course, obviously, the most prevalent are the current players and people that were involved with the Camp Randall, because those are the people that most of the people remember.
Barry, outside of Badger football people and events, were there some surprises to you that you're like, oh, I didn't realize Camp Randall had done that?
I was surprised by some of the names that were submitted because it touched a lot of areas, and it wasn't just Wisconsin football players. It could have been events that happened in Camp Randall, high school events that happened here. So though it was a celebration of 100 years, not just of Wisconsin football, but events in Camp Randall. So it was interesting for me to go through and take a look. And I thought, other than a couple that I thought I had ideas other than, I thought it was really well done, well thought out.
Chris.
Barry, when it comes to the building itself, the enhancements over the years, which one do you think had the most impact on the environment, or which do you remember really thinking, wow, I'm glad we did that, I'm glad that happened?
I think the addition of the suites and the offices really affected the look of the stadium, the feel of the stadium, the noise within the stadium, how it affects the games, just the overall feel of the whole place. It took a different, made it a different atmosphere once we completed it. And it was difficult because we had started, Pat was the athletic director then, we had started the facility and started the building, and then 9/11 hit, and we stopped. We just stopped the construction and then waited to move it on. But once we completed it, it really changed the feel of the whole place.
One of the things, go back to the 50s, is the lowering of the field. Obviously, if they didn't lower it back in the 50s, then a lot of things wouldn't have happened. But it went down, 12 to 15 feet. And I think they ran into the water table at that point, didn't go down any further. But that was one of the things we talked about as far as could we lower the stadium anymore, because then we could have raised it up like some of the stadiums where you would have had a wall behind the benches and unobstructed view, but you just couldn't do it here. So, but it's maintained the basic shape of the stadium, pretty much maintained, and so I think that was very important.
Jeff.
Pat, you over to your left here. You played here, obviously, went away, came back as AD. From your first days as AD, not only the physical structure of the stadium, but what do you think of when you think of how the football program has changed and how it has affected other areas of the athletic department where it is today?
Well, I'd like to say that it kind of turned out the way we had expected it to be. I know damn well that wasn't the case. We'll take one at a time. And but it's like I still remember our first, first game we had a marketing program, a whole new animal, I think it was. And after the first game, we almost beat California, whatever. And somebody sent letters. Well, it looks like the same animal to me. Well, it wasn't if you looked at it. And so I think that gradual building of that to be successful and to be considered national, nationally prominent team, I think is you'd like to say that was the plan, but it's certainly taking a lot of hard work and efforts, and a lot of good things along the way. The game at Michigan with Michigan State and Japan, taking a home game out of here, and just because we thought that would be the best thing for recruiting, and Barry was saying, hey, at least we know we're going to be at that particular place that particular year, and coming back and all those things, building on that. And I think that what's really gratifying is the way that the people responded in terms of that pride. And I remember the first game that I came as not athletic director, and just walking around in shorts and whatever, and people come up and say, thank you. And I think Barry probably gets the same way, and people feel that way. And that it's genuine, that people realize that they've gotten some of that pride back and the bragging rights that we had lost for a good period of time.
Andy.
Pat, I'm curious if you have a favorite story among the 100 outside of your own.
Well, I'll skip the elephant for the time being, and I'll skip the meeting my wife at the game because that's been documented, I think. But one of the interesting ones was, I think it was 2001 or 2, maybe 3, when the stadium was being built. And we'd had, off and on, had a couple of lawsuits here and then about the safety, et cetera. And we, of course, had the Michigan situation. And so there was stadium construction was going on outside the bowl. And I So I told everybody, I said, look, I said, unless I get a letter of indemnification here, we're not going to play jump around, because I'm not sure what that tuning fork type mentality could do. And so didn't get it. So the third quarter comes around, stop, boo, whatever. We didn't play it. And then the letters and things I got, I mean, it was a right. It's a privilege to do this. How could you possibly do that? I thought it was very important. So I told the chancellor, I said, this may be an opportunity for you to step in and eliminate the bad language, the Miller highlight commercial type language, and saying if they do it, you don't play jump around. Well, we didn't do it. So, but that was, that was on us, and we've gone through. We didn't want to take any chances, because if you ever, you guys have sit over in the press box, it's not fun. I mean, the stuff starts to move, and I talked Kenny Kruska at Findorf, and I said, Kenny, I said, I have nightmares at night of that upper deck over there going like that. He said, don't worry about it. There's so much steel in there, it can't possibly fall down. Well, Kenny would say that.
Jeff.
Barry, kind of similar to what I asked Pat. I mean, what was more gratifying for you as a coach, seeing breaking through in '93, or now as an athletic director, where the program, the level of success the program's been able to sustain, other than a couple minor dips?
There's nothing like achieving a goal. When you come in, you have a vision, and so many people buy into that vision. And that's not just players, that's coaches, that's everyone within the administration. Everyone that touches the football team buys into that vision and does their part. And then you accomplish that, and you not only go to the Rose Bowl, but you win the Rose Bowl. And that's quite a feat. There's always the discussion, what's harder, to get there or to stay there. I think getting there is the hardest. It's not easy to sustain, and all you have to do is take a look around at some of the people in our league, and there are brand names in our league that haven't sustained, that they've had peaks and valleys. And through the 90s, a number of schools, and I think the strength of our league is so many teams in the 90s went to the Rose Bowl, but many of them did not sustain success after they went there. And it really makes me proud, and in the long run, the fact that our culture allows us to sustain this success really is maybe a little more meaningful.
Todd.
Barry, this is about the past of the stadium. The future of the stadium, I know, is something that's been brought up. We've seen the master plan has, things that could happen in the coming years. How interested are you in seeing what is next for this stadium, and what can be done to make, to build on what you've done in making it what it is now?
Well, we've pretty much maxed every inch of this stadium out. We've made offices. We have the largest kitchen in the city in the stadium. We've done a training table. We've used every bit of it that we can, and used it well. We have some plans. I don't think any of the plans change the integrity of the stadium. Probably the next thing will be in the end zone, where we'll do some things. We're talking about what direction we want to go there, but I think all of it has to do with the game day experience for our fans and improving that. But it won't take the integrity away from the stadium.
Really, what is the importance of having a historic venue like this here? When you think about the things you could do if you build a new stadium, why is it important to have something like this here that's been here for 100 years?
Well, it's the feeling, the tradition of walking in a stadium like this, or, I can remember going to Minnesota, and all the sports writers wanted to ask me what I felt of the stadium. How does it compare with ours? Well, you can't build tradition. You can't put a building up and say that because it looks like such and such, or we copied this from this or that stadium. Now we have tradition. That's what we have that here, and it reeks. And when you come in, when teams take the field, they can feel it. And there are many stadiums. We're fortunate in our league. We have a number of stadiums like that. And so, that's why we're so proud of this. And I wouldn't even think of building another stadium.
It says that fans were allowed to submit nominations to this thing. Were there any fan submissions that were kind of a surprise to you that you didn't see coming?
I can take that. I know one off the top without trying to give too much away. Someone had suggested the men's soccer team started here and played their first, I think, 8 seasons here, which was something I've been here 20 years now. I did not know that. So that played a role. What I think the fan submissions did was reinforce a lot of what our selections were. A lot of the names that you'll see on the list were submitted also by fans and were on our radar already. And it goes to show that there are some names that are just iconic in our history, and all fans really respond to those and really the feelings, like Coach Alvarez just said, of the history really came through in those fan submissions.